Let me ask you another question. There will be the awkward elephant in the room, and that is about the Sun-Times story last week about your spending of $30,000 from your campaign fund for hair and makeup. Can you respond to that and explain why you think that's an appropriate use of the campaign dollars to what to many people seems like a lot of money?
I think it's always appropriate to make sure that we're investing in small businesses, especially minority-owned, black-owned, women-owned businesses. Our campaign spends money on food. We support black and brown-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, printing. There are a number of things that my campaign spends dollars on. And I'm so committed to supporting small businesses that even as mayor, just made another announcement of another $35 million available for small businesses. That's important to people, that we lift up, small businesses that, in particular, that don't always get the attention and support that they deserve it. And so we're going to continue to do that as a city, and we'll make sure that, I encourage all of you in this room, support small businesses. Go get your hair and makeup done by black people in particular.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about woke Mayor Brandon Johnson, who got confronted on the fact that his campaign is spending over $30,000 in hair and makeup. Now, this is a prime example of what happens when you give a progressive money, because progressives don't believe in budgeting. They don't understand finance. They don't understand the economy. They don't understand anything having to do with money. They believe they can just spend money on anything, and they will do that with their campaign and also with your taxpayer dollars. This story is not necessarily about Brandon Johnson and spending $30,000 on hair and makeup, which I think is ridiculous. It's not just about that. It's just about the fact that these progressives, they will justify anything that they do using the race card, okay? I think that most people can probably agree that, yeah, I mean, when it comes to looking good, that's probably a legitimate campaign expense. But spending $30,000 in order to do that, yeah, something's up, okay? But what happens is that when these politicians get caught in their corruption in regards to how they misuse funds, what happens is that these woke politicians, the progressive ones, like an Eric Adams or a Brandon Johnson, they will pull the race card. They will say, well, I'm helping so-called black and brown businesses, so please don't criticize me for what I'm doing, which is what you guys saw in the beginning of this video. Is Brandon Johnson was confronted on this, right? Like, hey, you're spending $30,000 in campaign funds on hair and makeup. Is that appropriate? He says, well, I'm spending the money on black and brown businesses, right? Which, again, is a way to deflect criticism instead of just saying that, yeah, well, I think that is justified because of X, Y, and Z reasons. No. They immediately jump to the race card, okay? And they do this when it comes to multiple issues. I'm talking about more serious issues. We're talking about spending taxpayer dollars. They will justify wasting it in corruption and getting their friends paid by saying, well, we're supporting black and brown businesses. Therefore, you shouldn't criticize us or you are a racist. So without further ado, I actually want to play this clip of the local news media covering this scandal involving Mayor Johnson spending $30,000 in campaign funds on hair and makeup.
With questions about Mayor Brandon Johnson using campaign funds to pay for hair and makeup expenses for himself and other people tied to his campaign. The Chicago Sun-Times first reported that Johnson has spent more than $30,000 in 15 months. Election lawyers disagree if it's lawful. NBC5 political reporter Marianne Ahern joining us now with reaction. Marianne?
Allison, election law does not mention specifically hair and makeup. So depending on whom you ask, there is disagreement whether it's legal. He's not the first to use campaign funds this way, but in Johnson's case, he's using those dollars not just for himself, but others too. Last August, when we spoke to Mayor Brandon Johnson in a one-on-one interview, his makeup artist prepped him before we asked questions. Johnson is paying his makeup artist through his campaign donors. Likewise, this hair salon in Austin is also paid with campaign funds. It's just 3 doors from his former county commission office. Johnson has expensed more than $32,000 from January of 2023 through the end of March of this year. Campaign records show the makeup artist was paid $28,000.
Wow.
The hair salon, $4,000.
I would be hard-pressed to say grooming is part of your governmental functions. That's not a function of government to look good.
Bert Olson is an attorney who specializes in election law. So does Michael Dorf.
The key is the law does not prohibit expenditures for grooming expenses, and it is absolutely clear that how you look is at least as important as what you say in any political situation.
The Illinois State Board of Elections says, quote, if you're making an appearance as mayor of Chicago and you hire a makeup and hair artist for the event, that would most likely be a legitimate use. But if you're using them for a strictly social event, there might be a stronger grounds for a complaint. You also can't pay more than fair market value for goods and services.
Yeah, and I think that's where the questions kind of come in, okay, in the sense that if you look at Mayor Johnson and his haircut, right, and his makeup, which, by the way, I'm very judgmental of men that wear makeup, okay, even if you're wearing it for TV purposes. Personally, if I was on TV, I would skip the makeup, okay? I don't care if all of my flaws are showing. I do not care. I'm not going to wear makeup. I'm not going to wear a wig, okay? I'm not going to do any of these things, okay? But again, the problem here is that if you look at some of these receipts, right, like, for example, in this report, you had some of these visits. I mean, we're talking about $8,000, $7,000, okay, for hair and makeup per visit, for a total of $30,000+ spent on hair and makeup in total. Now, here's the thing. Brandon Johnson has a little mohawk and a fade, and he gets his beard trimmed up. And it's not always like that, right? A lot of times, his hair is nappy. And at most, it should be costing him about $50 per haircut. Now, again, this is in Biden's economy where the cost of goods and services have increased exponentially, right? It kind of is ridiculous that for a fade and to get your beard trimmed up, just a regular haircut, yeah, you have to pay like $50-$60. Okay, that's typical. Back in the day, I remember when you used to get a haircut like that for like $20. Okay, now again, it's $40, $50, $60 if you want a good one. Okay, and even then, sometimes, you know, you got people that are mediocre charging those prices. But I digress on that. My point is that either this guy is paying way over market value, or he is getting his whole team done. Okay, he's getting their makeup done, their hair done, even though they're not the mayor, right? They're not running for a re-election, okay? Also, on top of that, these so-called black and brown businesses that are benefiting, they get paid all this money, and guess what? They turn around and they support the mayor. And everybody knows that this mayor is extremely unpopular. So at this point, he's basically buying support. Now, again, why is this important? Well, the reason why it's important because this is a disturbing pattern of behavior. Now, this incident in and of itself probably is not that big of a deal, even though, again, it's clearly corrupt. I mean, if you're an idiot and you want to send money to Brandon Johnson to have him reelected, then I guess you deserve to have your money spent on stupid things like this. But when it comes to taxpayer dollars, they're doing the same exact thing. They're wasting it on so-called black and brown businesses in order to justify something that does not fit so-called black and brown people, at least if you are an American citizen, that is, because this guy funneled millions of dollars to so-called black and brown businesses to help illegal immigrants. And again, the way he justified it was that, well, we're helping out black and brown businesses, so don't criticize me.
Mayor Johnson is celebrating the involvement of black and brown businesses in feeding new arrivals. This morning, he dropped by BJ's Fresh Market and Bakery. He was there to shine a light on the $17.6 million invested in small black and Latino-owned businesses in Chicago by the Greater Chicago Food Depository in the state of Illinois as well. That money feeding more than 10,000 asylum seekers over the past 8 months.
The $17 million investment for these 18 black and brown small businesses is really it really captures what I call the soul of Chicago. It's who we are.
Now, Mayor Eric Adams of New York used this same excuse when he got criticized for giving the illegal immigrants debit cards. He said, well, the company that's behind it is a so-called black and brown business, right? It's black owned, okay? As if that makes it better, okay? As if that makes it justified, right? This is what they do every single time, okay? These people are using taxpayer dollars and their campaign funds as well too to get their friends paid, to buy support. And here's another example involving woke Mayor Brandon Johnson. The Chicago Teachers Union, who he used to be an organizer for, this guy is buddy-buddy with these people, right? The school district that is failing for the most part, but yet these individuals, despite being one of the most funded school districts in the country per student, they want more money. They're trying to shake down the state for $1 billion more, again, led by woke Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Mayor Brandon Johnson, a former CPS teacher who got a huge boost from the CTU during his campaign, visited Springfield just last week to fight for those state funds. The Chicago Teachers Union saying the state has failed to fully fund CPS, leaving students at a disadvantage. They want lawmakers to make it a priority in this year's budget. While State Representative LaShawn Ford commends the teachers for their lobbying effort, he says it's not realistic this year.
It's hard to get $1 billion on top of the revenue that we're sending to CPS in one budget cycle.
This comes at a time when the city is about to begin negotiations with the Chicago Teachers Union on a new contract. This morning, the teachers' demands are being scoffed at by some lawmakers from suburban districts who believe the scales have been tipped in CPS's favor with regards to funding over the years.
For the mayor and now his minions in the Chicago Teachers Union to come down here, try to bully lawmakers into more money they claim they are being shortchanged, is absolutely outrageous.
CPS district leaders are also in Springfield with the teachers today in an unprecedented partnership, hoping to convince them otherwise.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, this guy and the teachers union are begging the state of Illinois for more money, $1 billion more, even though Illinois spends nearly $24K per student already. In the Chicago public school system, they get nearly $30K per student. So they're getting more per student than the rest of the state, but we're underfunded, right? We don't get enough money. Black and brown kids are suffering, even though they're getting funded more than any other student in the state. But when you look at the outcomes, they're horrible. In Chicago, the public schools, 16% of elementary students tested at or above the proficient level for reading, and 12% tested at or above that level for math. Also, 16% of middle school students tested at or above the proficient level for reading, and 12% tested at or above that level for math, and 14% of high school students tested at or above the proficient level for reading, and 14% tested at or above that level for math. So again, a vast majority of these students can't read, can't write, okay, can't do math, can't do the basics, but yet you want $1 billion more? You want $1 billion more for what? What is the outcome? And then this guy, Brandon Johnson, he blocks any initiatives to try to fund and support school choice in Chicago. Because again, he's all in on the teachers union, right? The teachers union is paying him to essentially give them kickbacks, taxpayer dollars, to fund a failing system. A system that Brandon Johnson was a part of. And man, this guy was one of the wokest teachers. This guy doesn't believe in test scores and grading.
Which is education. As a former educator and longtime employee of the Chicago Teachers Union, what grade would you give the current system and why?
So, I personally don't give a lot of attention to grades. I don't. My responsibility is not simply to just grade the system, but to fund the system. That's how I'm ultimately going to grade whether or not our public school system is working, based upon the investments that we make for the people.
Wow. This is the quintessential progressive politician, okay? Somebody who does not care about return on investment. They do not care about outcomes. All they care about is funding. Well, we just need to throw money at the problem. My evaluation of whether or not the system is working is whether or not I'm getting my friends paid, not if they're actually teaching the students and the students are learning. That's not how he evaluates the system. He just says, hey, as long as we keep just giving them more and more and more money, then the system is working. Even though it's not, even though the outcomes are terrible. Again, this is corruption. It's in your face. Again, this is the same guy that had teachers try to brainwash students into going out and voting to increase taxes on real estate transfers to help fund Mayor Johnson's progressive projects. This is what he did. You had teachers in the class telling these kids, hey, yeah, go vote for this. Even though these students are not informed, their parents could not support the tax increase. But again, they're going to school to learn not about reading, writing, math, but how to vote for progressive initiatives, how to be an activist, right? This is what they was learning about in school, which is exactly what the progressives want. They want the kids dumb and stupid. All the kids need to know is, hey, this is how you go out here and vote for increasing taxes, more progressive initiatives, so that we can funnel money back into the pockets of these progressives and then they get rich. It's a money laundering scheme with your taxpayer dollars. And this is so rampant in these liberal cities and states. I covered a story about California spending billions, $20+ billion to fight homelessness. And homelessness went up. It went up. It increased. And guess who got paid? All of these Democrats and their progressive friends that are in these nonprofits that received this money, and there was no oversight from the state in regards to how the money was used. And guess what? You don't get any real outcomes or return on investment because these people don't believe in that. They just believe that, hey, as long as we're throwing money at it, that is success. That is ROI. That is not ROI. It's not. And again, this is why I like to have business people in government, not socialists, because business people who actually understand return on investment, right? They understand that outcomes are important. Throwing money at a problem and the problem's not getting better doesn't mean that you're solving the problem. That's not a good thing. That is a bad thing. That is an inefficient use of taxpayer dollars. But again, it's done on purpose because they're getting rich. The progressives, the Democrats, the liberals, they're benefiting from this money laundering scheme with your taxpayer funds. So again, Brandon Johnson paying $30,000 for hair and makeup may not necessarily be a big deal in and of itself, considering how he's using campaign funds. And hey, if you're stupid enough to donate to him, then hey, it is what it is, okay? You deserve to have your money wasted. But it is a symptom of a much bigger problem when it comes to the corruption of these progressives that are running that city. Because this type of misuse of resources is not just happening with their campaign funds, it's also happening with taxpayer dollars on a much larger scale. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.